Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday night. I hope you're all being safe out there and having a good time. I see on the news that about half of the country has already um, eased their restrictions, taken off the mask rules and all that stuff, opening things up. So I imagine a lot of y'all are out there having fun tonight. Just remember to be safe because the virus is still out there and it'll get you. It's getting people all the time. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bob, and I'm coming to you from the maximum security prison somewhere near you. I've been in prison. This is my 46th year in prison, and today I am going to talk about my very first day in prison. I was just 14 years old when I was tried as an adult and sentenced to an adult penitentiary for what was a non-violent crime. Or I should say there was no violence involved. It was just a robbery, nothing more than that. But they decided to try me and make an example out of me. So while I'm awaiting trial in the jail, county jail, anybody who's been to the county jail has heard all the war stories and about prison and what's going to happen when you get there, what to expect. And I mean, you hear all kinds of crazy stuff. Most of it's true, but then some of it is embellished. In any event, it's enough to scare the shit out of anybody. I don't care who you are. If you've never been to prison, you can say what you want to, but you're scared going for the first time. Now just imagine being a 14-year-old kid going for the first time. So, I heard all the stories. I'm scared like everybody else. I'm watching all the men around me. There was like 40 of us that they put on the bus about 1 or 2 in the morning. And these are grown men. And you could see the fear in them. And that didn't help me at all. So, they take us out to one of them big Bluebird buses, load us up on there. And, man, we ride all night. We ride about 10 hours maybe to get to the receiving center. Then we finally get there in the morning, and when they pull up, after they go through their checkpoint and everything, they pull into this big garage. Okay, and this garage is so big it could hold, it might be able to hold 4 buses. I can't remember, because we're talking 1975 here, so that part's a little sketchy. But we get off of the bus, and then they have us walk down this long hallway. Now, there ain't nothing but a bunch of redneck police running this shit. And they talking to people greasy as a MF. I mean, they really are. So they have us walk down this long hallway, and on one side of the hallway, I don't know what they call these bricks, but they're kind of like cinder blocks turned sideways where they got the holes in them so you can see out. The whole wall to the outside world was like that. And they line us all up on this long corridor to make everybody strip. And they're getting all up in your face, just talking trash, calling you niggers and boys and everything else. Daring you to say anything. Because if you just give a beat, they're going to kick your ass like you ain't never had it kicked before. So, you dump all your little property in front of you and you strip, and they make you stand there for about a half an hour naked while they just talk shit and fuck with you. Then they make everybody go through the motions, open your mouth, raise your arms, lift your balls, turn around, and you gotta bend over and spread them so they can look up your ass. It's very degrading and humiliating. And after that, you go inside, and it takes all day long for them to process everything. And what they do is they take you in, and before before they do your mug shot, the first thing you do is you go to a barber. Or no, I think the first thing you did was take a shower. I can't remember which came first. I think you took the shower first. And big group showers, you know. I wasn't used to nothing like that either. Then you go to the barber, and the barber shaves your head down to just a little tiny bit. And then they make you shave clean face too. You weren't allowed to grow no facial hair back then. And your hair could only be maybe a half an inch long. I mean, it was really short. They called it a regulation haircut. So once you get your hair cut, then you go through booking where they take your mug shot and everything. And that stuff took all day long to do. So then by the time, I think it was the evening meal came along, they march us all to the chow hall. Now they got dormitories and cell blocks there, you know, and they march us all to the chow hall. Now this chow hall was humongous. I mean, it had like, you know, the stainless steel tables with 4 round benches on them. They had at least 50 of them on this side and 50 of them on this side, and then 2 lines straight down the middle. Now, when you get close to the serving line, they have this rack with knives, forks, and spoons on it, and there was real metal knives, forks, and spoons like you have on the street. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. But they had that up there, so you grab your utensils, then you grab a steel plate. They had steel plates with the indentations for the food, you know. A lot of places still have those nowadays. And a lot of places took them out because they're used as a weapon. They're very good weapons, too. They will split your wig open easily. And anyway, went through the line, we get our food, and then the police make us sit at certain tables. You gotta fill up the tables, you know, so you try to get yourself in line by who you want to be sitting at the table with, you know. And just so happened I was down to the very back, and so I was in the last row. Now, all us receiving guys were on this side. The other side, they were receiving guys, but they had been there for months, you know. And so anyway, well, actually, excuse me, there was some guys that had been there on our side too, because this guy at the table next to us, all of them were from the other side that had been there a while. So anyway, we take our seats, and it's loud as hell in there, but on our side, it's pretty quiet because all us new guys, you know, we're nervous, you know, watching everything and scared and shit. And so I'm just sitting there eating my food, minding my own business, and trying not to look around because I don't want people to see how nervous I am. And all of a sudden, I hear a little noise to the left of me, and I hear this like a gurgling sound. And I turn around and look, and all of a sudden I see this guy pulling a knife out of the guy's neck, and the knife was as long as my arm. I mean, it was like this. And he had stabbed the guy in one side and came out the other. And right when he pulled it out, every beat of his heart, it just squirted blood like a faucet or something. I mean, it just squirted. And it was squirting over on our table. And it got all over me, all in my food, all over in everybody's shit, you know. And man, you talking about scared, that really, I'm like, you know, trembling. I don't know what to do. I just sit there and get bloodied up, you know. Look at my food. I don't eat no more, but I don't know what the fuck to do. So, they come in and they drag him out. I don't know if he lived or died or what, you know. But, Goon Squad come in there and drug him out. Then they take us to, they took me to the cell block. Everybody else went to the dormitories, but they put me in the cell block because of my age. And at that particular time, in order to be on the yard at the receiving center, you had to be 16 years old. Now, once you got transferred to your permanent penitentiary, it didn't matter what your age was, your ass was on the yard. So, anyway, they take me up to the cell block. And, it's huge. So, they get me up there, and I can't call the police's names, but they were two notorious police, known for beating ass and killing people back there. They get all up in my face, try to shake me up, but they didn't have to do much because I was already shook, And they give me my bedroll and tell me to go down to my cell. And they escort me down there. I get to my cell, it's a 2-man cell, and there's 3 people in there. There's a dude sleeping on the floor, and then there's a top and a bottom bunk. And the cell is only as long as the bunk, plus about 18 inches at the foot of the bunk to the bars. So I make the 4th person in the cell, and I'm like, what in the hell? So you got 2 of us living on the floor, and 2 in the bunks. And that was very, very unpleasant. But that's the way it was, I mean, in the 70s, we're just coming off the Vietnam War. This is 1975. Vietnam War just had ended, and the last troops were being brought back home, and they had just come up with the war. They had, in 72, they come up with the DEA and started the war on drugs. So the 70s and the 80s was the influx into the prison system, just poured in. Matter of fact, back then, I'd say back then they only had about 250,000 people locked up in the whole United States. And now you got 2.5 million. Ain't that some shit? But anyway, it was severe overcrowding, So I had to live in that 2-man cell with 4 people for several months before I got transferred to my permanent institution. And it was crazy. And what was even crazier is when you got to the permanent institution, you had to go out on the chain gang and work on the chain gang for at least 30 days. That was your first job assignment. And that was called your orientation. Nowadays, when you go through orientation, you go through a little class where they tell you all the rules and teach you the grievance process and, a bunch of BS, Whereas back then they didn't do none of that. You got your bedroll and they told you to find your building on your own. They just set you free and just go for it, But Monday morning you had to report to the Sallyport gate and go out and work in the swamps or in the forest or whatever under the gun, And chain gang was no joke. That shit was hard. You had a minimum of 30 days, and if you didn't work good enough, then your ass would stay out there another 2 or 3 weeks. You had to literally work your way off of it. It's terrible. But, that's the way it was. So anyway, that was my first experience of prison, my first day. So, I tell everybody out there who's watching now, don't think that you're too young to go to an adult prison. They didn't do it much back in those days, but nowadays, they're sending kids to the penitentiary left and right. About 10 years ago, I had a 17-year-old for a roommate. So don't think that you're immune to this shit, okay? Because they will oil your ass up and send you to the adult penitentiary, and you don't have to do any real serious stuff to end up here. So my advice to you is to obey the law, stay in school, and just do the right thing. That's easy to do out there. And if you do that, you're going to live a long, happy, free life. Now, don't you think that's better